Your frustration is built on a single, powerful illusion. Ancient Stoic philosophy calls it the dichotomy of control, a simple idea we have profoundly misunderstood. It is the radical notion that some things are up to us and everything else is not. Our modern anxiety, that simmering stress over traffic jams, critical comments, or unpredictable news, flows directly from confusing these two realms. We exhaust ourselves trying to command the uncontrollable, mistaking effort for authority. This video is not a lecture, it is a training ground. You will receive 20 distinct, practical exercises designed to actively dismantle this illusion of control, rebuilding your response to reality from the ground up. What if the key to calm was not gaining more control? How little you ever needed. By the end, you will have a complete mental toolkit to exchange frustration for profound clarity. How much of your daily mental effort is spent trying to manage the unmanageable? This mental training begins not with what you can control, but with what you cannot. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises is called the Premeditation of Adversity. At first, it sounds counterintuitive. Why would you deliberately imagine things going wrong? The purpose is not to cultivate fear or pessimism. It is a form of psychological inoculation. By rehearsing a potential setback in the safe space of your own mind, you strip the future event of its power to shock you. You expose the raw truth that the outcome itself was never truly yours to command. The value lies in the rehearsal of your response. Let us walk through it with a common scenario. You have a crucial work presentation tomorrow. The premeditation exercise asks you to sit quietly and vividly imagine it not going as planned. Picture the faces of your colleagues, their expressions blank or confused. Hear the silence after you finish speaking, instead of the engaged questions you hoped for. Feel that initial sting of disappointment. Now, here is the crucial shift. Do not stop at the disaster. Mentally walk through what happens next. You take a calm breath. You acknowledge the feedback without defensiveness. You consider what you can learn from the experience. You remind yourself that your worth is not defined by this single event. You see yourself leaving the room composed, your internal peace intact. By doing this, you accomplish two profound things. You confront the illusion that a perfect presentation was ever under your sole control, because audiences, technology, and countless other variables are not yours to command. More importantly, you reinforce the one thing that is always under your command, your reasoned choice to respond with virtue and clarity, no matter what happens externally. The shock is neutralized before it arrives because you have already lived through it in your mind and discovered your own resilience on the other side. That mental rehearsal for future challenges has a companion practice for the present moment, one that transforms how you see everything you currently have. This is the exercise of negative visualization. While premeditatio prepares you for possible future adversity, negative visualization works on your current state of gratitude. Its purpose is not to breed fear or sadness, but to create a profound and immediate appreciation for the ordinary blessings you might be taking for granted right now. The Stoics called this the premeditation of loss, but its true effect is the amplification of joy. Here is how it works in daily life. You pause, perhaps while having your morning coffee in a quiet kitchen, and you consciously contemplate what it would be like if this moment were gone. You do not just think about it abstractly, you visualize the absence, picture the room not as your comfortable home, but as an empty, silent space. Consider the warmth of the cup in your hands, and then mentally let that sensation fade. Acknowledge the health and ability that allowed you to make this simple drink, and reflect on how life would shift if that basic capacity were altered. This is not morbid, it is a clarifying lens. By temporarily removing the comfort in your imagination, you accomplish something remarkable. you see with stark clarity that this home, this health, this peaceful morning was never a guaranteed possession. It is a gift on loan from a universe of infinite change. You do not ultimately control whether you keep it. That realization, rather than creating anxiety, does the opposite. It makes the coffee taste richer. It makes the quiet feel more precious. It transforms a routine moment into a vivid, temporary gift you are actively receiving. You practice this not to dwell on loss, but to shatter the illusion of permanent ownership that leads to entitlement and eventually to taking things for granted. When you later walk through your front door after a long day, you might briefly visualize what it would be like to have no door to walk through. The simple act of turning the key then becomes a moment of conscious return, not an automatic habit. This exercise applies to relationships, to abilities, to anything you cherish. By periodically acknowledging their borrowed nature, you stop clutching them tightly out of fear of losing control. You hold them more openly with deeper gratitude, which paradoxically allows you to enjoy them more fully while you have them. The temporary nature of all things is not a reason for sorrow, but the very source of their value. This deep appreciation for the temporary gift of the present moment naturally invites a shift in scale. There is another Stoic exercise that takes this sense of perspective to its ultimate limit. It is called the view from above. When a personal worry feels all-consuming, when a frustration at work or a conflict in a relationship seems to fill your entire world, this practice asks you to perform a deliberate act of mental zoom. You begin by picturing the very situation causing you distress. See the room you are in, the expressions on faces, feel the tightness in your chest. Now, in your mind's eye, rise up. Visualize yourself from above, as if looking down on the building. See the streets of your neighborhood, the cars like tiny beetles moving along their paths. Keep going. See your entire city laid out like a map, then your country as a shape on a globe. Watch the planet itself, a beautiful blue marble suspended in the blackness of space, turning silently. Finally, contemplate the vast cosmos with its billions of stars and galaxies, a scale of time and space so immense it defies human comprehension. From this cosmic vantage point, your specific problem does not vanish, but its proportions are radically altered. The critical email, the delayed project, the sharp word exchanged, all of it is happening on a speck of dust orbiting a minor star in an unimaginably vast universe. This is not meant to make you feel small in a demeaning way. Its purpose is to instill a liberating humility. It reveals that the immense emotional weight you are carrying is not inherent to the event itself, but is a product of your limited, ground-level perspective. The grand processes of the cosmos, the turning of planets, the birth and death of stars, operate on a scale of forces you cannot possibly control. Your momentary irritation is one tiny note in a symphony of existence that has been playing for billions of years. By regularly practicing this mental zoom, you train yourself to see your life in its true context. You are a brief, conscious part of an endless, awe-inspiring story. That difficult conversation is not the center of the universe. It is a small event within the story of your life, which is itself a small story within the story of humanity. This realization does not dismiss your feelings as unimportant. Instead, it grants you the spaciousness to hold them without being crushed by them. The anxiety that felt like a tidal wave now looks more like a ripple in a much larger ocean. You begin to respond from a place of calm awareness, rather than reacting from a sense of besieged importance. The view from above dissolves the illusion that you must control every minor tremor in your immediate environment, because you can finally see that environment for what it truly is, a small, precious, and temporary part of a magnificent whole. From that cosmic perspective, the minor discomforts of daily life shrink into even sharper focus. They reveal a profound truth we spend most of our lives trying to avoid. Our modern world is engineered for ease, yet this constant comfort has an unintended side effect. It convinces us that any hardship, any small deprivation, is a failure of our control over our environment. We believe we must always be warm, always full, always perfectly at ease. The Stoics proposed a radical counter-practice to this conditioning, an exercise known as voluntary discomfort. Its purpose is not self-punishment or asceticism for its own sake. It is a deliberate, controlled experiment to prove a fundamental point to yourself. You voluntarily choose a minor hardship to demonstrate that you can not only endure it, but remain completely unshaken in your core peace. This dismantles the illusion that your well-being depends on perfect external conditions. You prove your control lies not in avoiding all discomfort, but in your sovereign choice of how you meet it. The actions are simple, physical, and deeply revealing. You might choose to take a cold shower instead of a hot one. For those 60 seconds, you feel the shock of the water, the instinct to flinch away. Your entire body signals that this is wrong, that you must regain control by turning the knob to hot. But you do not. You stand there, breathing steadily, observing the sensation without adding a story of suffering to it. You are not a victim of cold water. You are a person voluntarily experiencing cold water. That shift in framing is everything. Or you might decide to skip a meal, not out of neglect, but as a conscious choice. You notice the hunger pangs, the mental chatter urging you toward the kitchen. You observe these signals and you choose calmly to let them pass. You discover that hunger is a sensation, not an emergency. You remain fully functional, your mind clear, your mood steady. You have not lost control. You have exercised the ultimate control, the command over your own impulses. Another powerful practice is to sleep on the floor for a night. You forego the engineered comfort of your mattress, the familiar cradle of your bed. You feel the firmness of the floor, the slight ache in your side as you adjust. And in the morning you wake up, you are not broken, you are rested. You have just proven in the most tangible way that your resilience does not come from a perfect mattress, but from within you. Each of these small acts is a rebellion against the belief that you must control your external environment to be okay. They are rehearsals for the involuntary discomforts life will inevitably send your way, the delays, the setbacks, the minor pains. By choosing discomfort voluntarily, you build an inner muscle memory of resilience. You learn that the cold, the hunger, the hard surface are just facts. Your judgment about them, your decision to see them as unbearable or as a simple experience, is the only thing you truly control. This exercise strips away the fragility that comfort can create. It shows you that you are far more adaptable, far more durable than your lifestyle might have led you to believe. You stop seeing comfort as a necessity and start seeing it for what it is, a pleasant preference. And when you know you can handle the absence of your preferences, you walk through the world with a new, unshakable confidence. The traffic jam is no longer a theft of your comfort. It is just traffic. The critical comment is not a blow to your peace. It is just a comment. You have met greater physical challenges by choice and found yourself unmoved. These mental and emotional disturbances lose their power to control you in return. That inner confidence forged through voluntary discomfort creates a space for something even more crucial, a moment of pure choice. The most immediate and practical of all Stoic exercises lies in that tiny sliver of time between something happening and you reacting to it. This is the Stoic pause. It is the deliberate insertion of a gap between impulse and action, and it is the single most effective tool for dismantling the illusion that external events control your internal state. The world presents a stimulus, and we are conditioned to believe our emotional reaction is automatic, inevitable. A driver cuts you off, and anger floods your system. You receive a harsh email, and defensiveness tightens your chest. The Stoic pause challenges this entire narrative. It asserts that in that fleeting moment, you have a sovereignty most people never exercise. The process is disarmingly simple, yet its effects are revolutionary. The instant you feel the surge of a strong emotion, you perform a physical and mental intervention. You literally stop. If you are standing, you plant your feet. If you are sitting, you feel the chair beneath you. You take one slow, deep breath, drawing air in through your nose and releasing it gently through your mouth. This breath is not just for oxygen. It is a circuit breaker for your autonomic nervous system, a signal to your body that you are not in immediate physical danger. In that newly created space of one breath, you ask a single, piercing question. Is this feeling and the event that triggered it within my control, the other driver's behavior? Not within your control, the content and tone of the email, not within your control. The immediate, hot surge of biological sensation in your body that, surprisingly, is also not fully within your direct command in that first second. But here is where the magic happens. Your judgment of that sensation, your decision to label it as a world-ending crisis or a mere inconvenience, and your chosen response, all of that resides entirely within your control. By pausing, you intercept the automatic story your mind is trying to tell. You prevent the spark of irritation from becoming a forest fire of rage that ruins your next hour. You stop the ping of anxiety from spiraling into a full narrative of professional failure. This micro-exercise proves in real time that you are not a puppet whose strings are pulled by traffic, by other people's moods, or by unexpected news. You are the operator who decides which strings to pull in response. Practice this with the small stuff first. Your internet buffers during a show. Pause. Breathe. The buffering is not in your control. Your frustration about it is a choice. Your child spills a drink. Pause. Breathe. The spilled liquid is now a fact. Your tone of voice as you address it is your domain. Each time you successfully insert this pause, you chip away at the lifelong habit of reactive slavery. You are not suppressing emotion. You are creating the distance needed to examine it, to see it for what it is, a temporary cloud passing through the sky of your awareness, not the sky itself. Over time, this pause expands from a conscious effort into a natural reflex. The space between event and response widens, and in that space, your freedom grows. You begin to respond to life from a place of principle, not from a place of impulse. The illusion that the world controls your peace shatters because you have felt yourself choose peace deliberately in the very moments designed to steal it away. That deliberate pause creates a space for clarity, but clarity requires a map. The mental distinction between what you control and what you do not is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with consistent, tangible practice. This is where a simple journal becomes your most powerful training tool. Move beyond just writing about your day. We are going to use a structured method that actively rewires your perception, transforming abstract philosophy into lived experience. The exercise is called journaling with the dichotomy of control, and it takes less than 10 minutes each evening. You will need only 2 columns on your page. Label the first column within my control. Label the second outside my control. Now think back through your day. Pick 1 or 2 events that stirred a strong emotion, a moment of frustration, anxiety, or even excitement. Write a brief, factual description of the event in the center of your page. Then, begin the systematic work of categorization. Let us take a common example. You prepared thoroughly for a meeting at work, but a key colleague arrived unprepared, derailed the agenda, and the session ended without a decision. Your initial feeling was likely frustration, maybe even anger. Now, pick that event apart with your 2 columns. Start with the outside my control column. This is where you place every element that was not your sovereign domain, your colleague's preparation or lack thereof, their attitude and comments during the meeting, the reactions of other people in the room, the ultimate outcome of the meeting itself. All of these are external events, the actions and judgments of other independent minds. Writing them down here, visually separating them from yourself, is a profound act of release. You are literally placing them outside the circle of your concern. Now turn to the Within My Control column. This is the domain of your character. What belongs here? Your own preparation for the meeting, your choice to listen patiently or to interrupt, your decision to respond with irritation or with a calm request for clarity, your judgment about the event, whether you labeled it a catastrophic failure or a minor setback, your next action after the meeting concluded. These items are often startlingly small on the page compared to the list of external factors, but they are infinitely more powerful. They represent your actual agency. The magic of this visual practice is not in the writing, but in the seeing. Night after night, you train your brain to perform this categorization automatically. You begin to spot the pattern in real time. The slow-moving traffic is immediately filed into the outside column. Your choice to listen to an audiobook or to fume is placed decisively in the Within column. A friend's critical remark goes into outside. Your decision to inquire curiously or to become defensive is filed under Within. This journal is not for dwelling on problems. It is a sorting mechanism for reality itself. It proves in your own handwriting how much mental energy you waste trying to manage the contents of the outside column, a futile effort that always leads to exhaustion. Simultaneously, it highlights the immense, untapped power residing in the Within column, the realm of your judgments and actions that you have direct command over. Over time, this exercise does something remarkable. It stops being an exercise and starts being your instinct. The two-column framework becomes the silent architecture of your mind. When a challenge arises, you no longer feel a monolithic wave of stress. You feel a calm, automatic sorting. This part is not mine to fix. This part is mine to own. That split-second mental filing is the essence of Stoic wisdom, and it turns daily irritations from threats into opportunities to exercise the only control that has ever truly belonged to you. That sorting of reality leads to a profound shift in attitude, a final stage of mental training that might sound impossible at first. It is called Amor Fati, a Latin phrase meaning the love of fate. This is not about mere acceptance or stoic endurance. It is an active, deliberate embrace of everything that happens, the smooth and the rough, the success and the obstacle, as if you had chosen it yourself. Think of it not as passive resignation, but as the ultimate creative act. Imagine an artist at work on a vast canvas. She does not love only the graceful, flowing lines. She learns to love the unexpected drip of paint, the brushstroke that went in a direction she did not intend. Why? Because she understands that these so-called mistakes are not separate from the painting. They become part of its texture, its unique character, its final story. She incorporates them, works with them, and often they lead her to a more interesting, more authentic creation than her original plan ever allowed. Amor Fati asks you to become that artist for your own life. You are not the passive canvas being splattered with random events. You are the conscious creator who decides to love every mark, seeing each one as a necessary part of the whole masterpiece that is your existence. This is how you dismantle the final, most stubborn layer of the illusion of control, the belief that things should have gone differently. You stop fighting the current of reality and learn to swim with it, discovering its hidden direction. Let us take a tangible example. You are at the airport heading for an important trip. You arrive in good time, but a massive storm system grounds all flights. Your departure is cancelled and the next available seat is not for 2 days. The immediate reaction is pure frustration. All your plans, your sense of control over your schedule evaporates. The old story screams that this is a disaster, a theft of your time, a failure of the system. Now apply Amor Fati. Take a deep breath and ask, if I had chosen this delay for a hidden, beneficial reason, what might that reason be? The reframing begins. Perhaps this storm forced a pause you desperately needed but would never have taken. You find a quiet corner and finally read that book you have been carrying. You strike up a conversation with a stranger also stranded, leading to a fascinating connection. You discover a surprisingly good restaurant in the terminal you would have never seen. You get a full night of deep sleep in a hotel instead of a cramped airplane seat. The obstacle, the missed flight, is no longer a demon to be fought. It becomes the very agent that delivered unexpected rest, human connection, or simple peace. This is not about pretending the delay is fun. It is about recognizing that your judgment of it as purely bad was a choice, and that another, more empowering choice is available. You choose to love the fate of the storm because fighting it is futile and exhausting, and loving it opens a door to hidden gifts. You practice this with smaller events first. A sudden rainstorm cancels your outdoor walk. Amor Fati turns it into the perfect excuse to brew tea and call an old friend. A work project you wanted gets assigned to someone else. Amor Fati allows you to see it as liberation to focus on a different skill, or as a chance to observe and learn from another's approach. By cultivating this attitude, you perform the ultimate alchemy on your experience of life. You transform every event, especially the difficult ones, from adversaries into teachers, from interruptions into the very fabric of your journey. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as the one who gives circumstance its meaning. The final illusion of control, the wish for a different past or a perfectly managed future, dissolves. In its place is a deep, unshakable trust in the unfolding story, and a quiet love for your unique, unplanned, and perfectly imperfect role within it. The love of fate is a powerful compass, but sometimes we need a more tangible map to follow. How do you translate that grand acceptance into a practical decision in the heat of a difficult moment? One of the most elegant Stoic exercises provides exactly that, by inviting an imaginary guide into your mind. It is called the Contemplation of the Sage. The sage is not a perfect, unattainable superhero. Think of this figure as the wisest, most composed version of yourself, or as an idealized model of virtue drawn from historical Stoics like Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor who faced constant war, political betrayal, and personal loss, yet his private writings reveal a man constantly striving for calm and justice. He is a powerful archetype to use. The exercise works like this. When you are confronted with a situation that triggers a reactive impulse, you simply pause and ask yourself one clear question. How would the sage respond to this? This simple inquiry creates an immediate and crucial mental separation. It pulls you out of your own swirling emotions and allows you to view the event from a balcony seat through the eyes of wisdom. You are no longer just you feeling insulted by a co-worker's remark. You are now an observer, considering how a person of profound inner strength would interpret that same remark. The answer almost always follows the same pattern. The sage would first calmly distinguish what is within their control from what is not. The co-worker's words, their tone, their opinion, all of that resides firmly outside the sage's control. The sage would not waste a single ounce of mental energy trying to change or control that external fact. Their focus would turn instantly to the inner realm, the domain of their own character. How would the sage choose to judge this event? Not as a personal attack, but likely as a reflection of the other person's own struggles or misunderstandings. What virtuous action would the sage then take? Perhaps they would respond with clarifying questions, seeking to understand rather than to defend. Or they might choose silence, recognizing that not every spark requires fuel. They would act with a calm dignity that leaves their own peace completely intact. By externalizing wisdom in this way, you accomplish something beautiful. You bypass the noisy ego that wants to be right, to retaliate, to prove itself. You consult a higher version of your own conscience. It is like having a wise mentor whispering in your ear at the exact moment you need one. You are not suppressing your initial feeling. You are creating space to choose a better one, Try this with a mundane frustration. You are stuck in a long, unmoving line at the grocery store. Your immediate self feels irritation, tapping your foot, sighing loudly. Now ask the question, how would Marcus Aurelius, with the weight of an empire on his shoulders, handle this grocery line? The answer brings instant perspective. He would see it as a trivial delay, a perfect opportunity to practice patience. He might observe the other people in line with detached curiosity, or use the moments to order his own thoughts. He would certainly not allow a cue to dictate his internal state. By emulating that model, you are not pretending. You are actively training your neural pathways. Each time you choose the sage imagined response over your own automatic reaction, you are strengthening the circuitry for wisdom and weakening the circuitry for petty frustration. This exercise makes the dichotomy of control vividly personal. It moves the philosophy from a concept in your head to a character you can step into, even if just for a moment. Over time, you will need the imaginary sage less and less. Your first impulse will begin to mirror what the sage would have been. You will have internalized the model, and the calm, clear response will start to feel like your own. That sage-like perspective invites a fundamental reclassification of everything in our lives. Stoics make a startling distinction between what they call good and evil, and what they term the indifference. This is not a dismissal of the world's value. It is a precise tool for mental clarity. In Stoic philosophy, the only true good is virtue, your own excellent character, acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. The only true evil is vice, the opposite of those qualities. Everything else, every single external condition, falls into a vast third category, the indifference. This includes your health, your wealth, your social reputation, even the comfort of your body. They are called indifference not because they do not matter, but because they lack the inherent power to make you good or evil. A pile of gold cannot make you wise. A critical comment cannot make you unjust. These things are morally neutral. Their value depends entirely on how you use them. This exercise is the practice of consciously labeling. When you feel a surge of anxiety about your bank account, you pause and label it. This is a preferred indifferent. You prefer to have financial security. It makes life easier, more comfortable, but its presence or absence does not alter your core capacity for virtue. When you feel a pang of fear about a potential illness, you label it. Health is a preferred indifferent. You naturally prefer to be well. Yet, history is filled with individuals in poor health who lived with profound dignity and purpose. The flip side is the dispreferred indifferent, poverty, sickness, a damaged reputation. You naturally disprefer these states. You would choose to avoid them if you could. But again, they are not evils. They are simply more difficult conditions within which to practice virtue. The exercise is to catch yourself in the act of moralizing an external. You hear a piece of gossip about yourself and feel a hot wave of shame. Stop. Reputation is an indifferent. It is outside your direct control. Your commitment to honesty, however, is a good, and that is entirely within you. You receive an unexpected bill and feel a sinking dread. Stop. Wealth is a preferred indifferent. Your response, whether you choose panic or prudent problem solving, is where your character resides. By constantly practicing this labeling, you perform a mental transfer of value. You stop placing your sense of worth on the shifting sands of externals, and you relocate it to the solid ground of your own choices. The goal is not to become emotionally flat, uncaring about whether you are rich or poor, healthy or ill. That is impossible and not the point. The goal is to correct the profound error of believing that your happiness is hostage to these conditions. You learn to care about them differently. You pursue a preferred indifferent like a good job, but with a light grasp, knowing it is a tool for living well, not the source of your goodness. You face a dispreferred indifferent like a financial loss, not as a catastrophe, but as a tougher arena in which to demonstrate resilience and integrity. This reclassification is liberating. It means a bad review cannot touch what is truly good in you. A promotion does not make you a better person. Your moral North Star remains fixed within, illuminated by your own actions, completely untouched by the indifferent storms that rage outside. That reclassification of value requires a daily practice of honest accounting. The Stoics called this the evening review, a quiet ritual of self-examination far more precise than a simple diary entry. It is not about replaying your day's events like a movie. It is a forensic audit of your own mind, specifically targeting the judgments that created your emotional weather. The goal is to catch the moment you handed your internal peace over to an external event and to learn how to reclaim it. Here is how to perform this review. Find a few minutes of quiet at the end of your day. You might sit with a notebook or simply reflect in the dim light of a room. Begin not with what happened to you, but with how you reacted. Scan back through the day and identify 1 or 2 moments where you felt a strong disturbance, a spike of anger, a wave of anxiety, a flush of envy. Now, with gentle curiosity, ask the first crucial question. Where did I confuse what was within my control with what was not? Trace the feeling back to its source. Perhaps you felt anxious because a project deadline was moved up unexpectedly. The audit reveals the confusion. The changed deadline was an external event outside your control. Your anxiety, however, stemmed from an internal judgment, the story you told yourself that this change was a catastrophe, a reflection on your ability, or a threat to your security. You mistakenly believed you needed to control the timeline to be safe, and when you could not, you experienced distress. The review makes this error visible. You see the precise point where you fused the external fact with your internal narrative. The second question is even more revealing. Where did I act against my own principles? This moves from your judgments to your actions. Did you, in that moment of frustration, speak harshly to someone when your principle is kindness? Did you indulge in complaint when your principle is resilience? Did you retreat from a necessary conversation when your principle is courage? Be specific and factual without self-condemnation. The purpose is not to punish yourself, but to see the gap between your highest ideals and your automatic reactions. This gap is where the illusion of control thrives. We believe if only the external world would behave, we could be good. The evening review proves the opposite. Your goodness, your peace, is always available, but it is obscured by these unexamined judgments. Having identified the misstep, you complete the review with a simple, forward-looking resolution. If a similar situation arises tomorrow, how will I choose to see it and act? You might decide, next time a deadline shifts, I will first acknowledge it as an external event. I will then focus my control on my response, perhaps by calmly reassessing priorities or asking clarifying questions. You are programming a wiser default for tomorrow. This nightly practice is the ultimate tool for integration. It takes the philosophy off the page and etches it into your lived experience. Over time, you will start to catch these confusions in real time. You will feel the impulse to blame an external force for your mood, and a quiet voice will correct the record. That is not within my control, but my resentment is. This is how the illusion of external control is dismantled, not in a single grand realization, but through the consistent, humble, daily work of cleaning the lens of your own perception. The nightly review clarifies your internal world, but what about your place in the external one? We all carry invisible scripts, titles we wear without thinking. Parent, partner, employee, friend, citizen. So often we perform these roles while fixated on the applause we hope to receive, or the frustration we feel when it does not come. A powerful Stoic exercise, drawn directly from the writings of Marcus Aurelius, asks you to rehearse these roles with a radical shift in focus. He called it a meditation on social duty. Each morning, before the day's demands begin, you take a few quiet moments to consciously remember who you are. not in an abstract spiritual sense, but in a concrete relational one. You list your primary roles for the day. I am a parent, I am a colleague, I am a neighbor, I am a student of life. With each title, you then ask a single, piercing question. What does the virtue of this role require of me today? You deliberately exclude all thoughts of outcome. You do not think, I am a parent so that my child gets into a good school. You think, I am a parent, so my duty today is to act with patience and to listen with full attention. You do not think, I am an employee so that I get a promotion. You think, I am an employee, so my duty today is to act with diligence and to collaborate with fairness. This mental rehearsal does something extraordinary. It redirects your entire sense of effort from the uncontrollable arena of results and social validation into the completely controllable domain of your own actions and attitudes. Your job is not to control how your child receives your patience or how your boss perceives your diligence. Your job is simply to embody patience and diligence themselves. The role becomes a vessel for virtue, not a vehicle for reward. Imagine starting your workday with this clarity. You sit at your desk, and instead of being haunted by the anxiety of an upcoming performance review or the desire for a colleague's praise, your mind is cleanly focused. My role as a team member today demands that I contribute clear ideas and support others when they struggle. That is it. That is the entire script. Whether your ideas are celebrated or ignored is not within the role's pure duty. Your fulfillment comes from knowing you performed the duty with integrity. This practice liberates you from the exhausting hunger for external validation. You are no longer a performer on a stage, desperately reading the faces in the crowd. You are an artisan focused solely on the quality of your craft. The parent who focuses on the duty of loving guidance finds a deeper peace than the parent obsessed with raising a perfect child. The citizen who focuses on the duty of informed and compassionate participation finds more meaning than one who is only engaged for the thrill of political victory. By rehearsing your roles through the lens of virtue each morning, you armor yourself against the day's inevitable friction. When a coworker is dismissive, you are not thrown off course because your duty was to be collaborative, not to control their response. When your child is resistant, you are not defeated because your duty was to be patient, not to control their mood. The role becomes an anchor, tethering your efforts to the only ground you can ever stand on, your own character. You move through the social world not as a beggar seeking approval, but as a contributor fulfilling a purpose. The outcomes, the opinions, the rewards, they become weather passing by. Your attention remains fixed on the steady work of being good, according to the simple, virtuous demands of the part you have been given to play. Those roles we rehearse are mental constructs, but the line between what we control and what we do not is not just an idea, it is a physical reality we can feel. There is an exercise that makes this distinction immediate and tangible, using the simplest tool you always have with you, your own two hands. It begins by assigning each hand a specific meaning. Hold your left hand out in front of you, palm open and facing up. This open hand represents everything in the universe that is outside your control. The weather, the traffic, the opinions of other people, the past, the eventual outcome of your efforts, all of it rests gently in this open palm. It is receptive because these things come to you, but it cannot grasp or hold them tightly. They are like leaves resting on your hand, subject to the next breeze. Now make a firm fist with your right hand. This fist represents your inner citadel, the one thing you have absolute command over, your faculty of choice, your judgment, and your voluntary actions. This fist is not for striking out, it is a symbol of your gathered will, your capacity to act from principle. When a worry or a frustration arises, you do not just think about it, you physicalize it. Let us say you are anxious about an important conversation you have later today. The old habit is to let that anxiety swirl in your head as an undifferentiated cloud of stress. Instead, you pause, you hold out your open left hand. You assign the external, uncontrollable elements of the situation to this hand. Your colleague's mood, their potential reaction, the exact words they will choose, even the time the meeting will end. All of these are leaves on your open palm. You visually and physically place them outside of yourself. You feel the lightness, the surrender of trying to clutch them. Then you look at your right fist. What belongs here? Your preparation, your intention to listen well, your commitment to speak with honesty and respect, your choice to maintain your own calm regardless of the other person's tone. These are the things you can grip firmly. They are yours to command. By separating the worry into these two physical gestures, you accomplish something a purely mental exercise cannot. You create a somatic memory, a bodily understanding of the dichotomy. The open hand teaches release, the fist teaches agency. The next time you are stuck in traffic, feeling that familiar tension, try it. One hand open for the red lights, the other drivers, the construction delays. The other hand a fist for your choice to listen to music, to practice patience, to simply observe your surroundings without adding a story of suffering. This exercise cuts through overthinking. It forces a clear, binary categorization in the moment of stress. Is this thing I am worrying about a leaf for the open hand, or is it a matter of will for the clenched fist? You will find that nearly everything causing you distress belongs in the open hand, and seeing it resting there, separate from the core of your will in the other hand, drains it of its power to agitate you. Your peace was never in that open palm. It was always only in the fist. That physical separation of the open hand and the fist reveals a hidden layer of language shaping our reality. Our words are not just descriptions, they are declarations. We look at a cancelled flight and we say, "This is terrible." We hear critical feedback and think, "This is unfair." In that moment, we are not observing an event, we are issuing a verdict, and we are doing it with the absolute certainty of a judge handing down a final sentence. There is a simple, profound exercise that dismantles this automatic courtroom in your mind. It is called the "it seems to me" reframe. The rule is linguistic, but its effect is philosophical. You train yourself to habitually preface your strong reactions with 4 specific words, "it seems to me." Instead of declaring, "This traffic is a nightmare," you learn to say, internally, "It seems to me that this traffic is a nightmare." The difference feels subtle, almost trivial, yet it creates a chasm of psychological distance. The first statement, "This is a nightmare," presents your judgment as an objective fact, a property of the traffic itself, as inherent as its color or sound. You have fused your subjective experience with the external event. The second statement, "It seems to me that this is a nightmare," performs a graceful separation. It acknowledges the event, the traffic, but it locates the quality of nightmare squarely within your own perception. You are not describing the world, you are reporting on your interpretation of it. This tiny shift in phrasing is a recovery of sovereignty. It highlights that the badness, the frustration, the unfairness is not baked into the event. It is your subjective judgment of the event, and that judgment is the one thing in this entire scenario you have direct authority over. Practice this with minor irritations first. Your coffee is cooler than you like. The automatic thought says, "This coffee is ruined." The reframe whispers, "It seems to me that this coffee is too cool." Instantly, the problem transforms from a ruined object in the world to a mild preference in your mind. You can then choose, do I heat it up or do I simply drink it? The emotional charge dissipates because you have stopped assigning cosmic importance to a temperature. Apply it to a social slight. A friend forgets a call. The raw reaction claims they are so inconsiderate. The reframe offers, "It seems to me that their forgetting was inconsiderate." This does not excuse the action, but it prevents you from cementing a permanent label onto their character. You are left with a specific, manageable event, their forgotten call, and your chosen response, rather than a global condemnation of a person. The power of this exercise lies in its constant, gentle reminder that your reality is filtered through your judgments. The rainy day is not inherently depressing. It seems depressing to you because it cancelled your picnic. The challenging work project is not inherently overwhelming. It seems overwhelming to you because of the story you are telling yourself about your ability to handle it. By repeatedly inserting "it seems to me," you train your brain to catch itself in the act of world building. You learn to see the invisible brushstrokes of your own opinion painting the world in certain colors. This creates a pause, a moment of choice. Is this judgment useful? Is it accurate? Could I choose a different one? The cancelled flight shifts from a terrible tragedy to a neutral event that seems terrible because it disrupted your plans, but which might also contain hidden space for rest. This linguistic discipline does not promote cold detachment. It cultivates precise awareness. You feel the frustration of the traffic, but you feel it as your frustration, not as a property of the cars. That distinction is everything. It means the external world, in all its chaotic beauty, is free to be what it is, and you are free to choose moment by moment how it seems to you. The words we choose shape our inner world, but one phrase stands apart in its power to reshape our entire relationship with time. Memento Mori, remember you must die, is perhaps the most misunderstood of all Stoic exercises. It is not a morbid fixation or a call to live in fear. It is a gentle, daily whisper designed to instill a profound and liberating urgency. Think of it as the ultimate filter for your attention. When you hold the awareness of your own finitude lightly in mind, it performs a ruthless triage on your daily concerns. The trivial anxieties, the social slights, the desperate clawing for control over unpredictable futures, all of it begins to look different under this clarifying light. The practice is simple in form but deep in effect. It might be a glance at a skull on a philosopher's desk, a pause before a weathered headstone during a walk, or a quiet moment of reflection each morning. The object is not the point. The internal question is, given that my time here is limited and not mine to command, how shall I spend this hour, this day? This conversation, the illusion it shatters, is the most pervasive one of all, the unspoken belief that we have an endless supply of tomorrows to waste on yesterday's resentments or tomorrow's worries. By remembering the inevitable conclusion, you are forced to reckon with what truly constitutes a life well lived, and the answer is never found in the external outcomes you cannot control. It is found entirely in the quality of your character and the integrity of your actions in the present moment. Imagine facing a difficult but necessary conversation you have been avoiding. The old story is one of fear, of potential conflict, of wanting to control the other person's reaction. Now apply the Memento Mori lens. If this were one of your final days, would you choose to spend it harboring this unspoken tension? Or would you choose the clarity and honesty that comes from speaking your truth with kindness, regardless of the outcome? The fear of a temporary awkwardness dissolves when measured against the backdrop of a finite life. You are liberated to act from principle, not from fear. This exercise does not make you reckless. It makes you intentional. It turns a delayed project from a source of vague anxiety into a series of deliberate, focused actions you can take today. It transforms a petty argument into a conscious choice to either address it with grace or to simply let it go, because you see both options as preferable to poisoning your limited time with bitterness. The contemplation of life's end is not about darkness, it is about light. It illuminates what is precious. It asks you to stop postponing your virtue, your love, your contribution. Why wait to be the patient parent, the diligent craftsman, the present friend? The future where you will finally have everything under control is a mirage. The only real arena for your goodness is the fleeting, uncontrollable, beautiful present. By remembering you must die, you are jolted awake into the life you are actually living. and you begin to invest your energy not in trying to command the uncontrollable river of time, but in steering your own vessel with wisdom and purpose while you are still on the water. That awareness of life's finitude brings a quiet humility to our plans. We move now to a subtle but powerful linguistic tool the Stoics called the reserve clause. This is the practice of silently appending a simple phrase to every goal, every intention you set, fate permitting. In some traditions, you hear the phrase God willing. The purpose is not superstitious, as if saying the words wards off bad luck. It is a deliberate mental habit designed to create an accurate and healthy separation in your own mind. It draws a bright line between your effort, which is yours to command, and the final outcome, which is not. Think of it as a built-in psychological shock absorber. You are preparing for a job interview. You do the work you control, researching the company, practicing your responses, preparing your materials. In your mind, you hold the intention, I will perform well in this interview, fate permitting. Those last two words are crucial. They acknowledge the vast landscape of variables you do not control. The other candidates, the hiring manager's personal mood that day, an internal shift in budget, a sudden company reorganization. By including the reserve clause, you are doing two things simultaneously. You are committing fully to your sphere of action, your preparation, and your conduct. And you are simultaneously releasing your grip on the result. You are saying, I will do my part with excellence, and I understand the final outcome rests with forces beyond my command. This is profoundly different from a half-hearted effort masked as detachment. It is wholehearted engagement with a light grasp on the prize. The resilience it builds is immediate. When you receive the news that you did not get the position, the disappointment may still arrive, but it lands differently. It does not carry the additional, crushing weight of a broken promise you made to yourself. You never promised yourself the job. You promised yourself your best effort, and you delivered that. The outcome was simply not fated to align this time. The clause has done its work, insulating your sense of self-worth from the unpredictable winds of external result. Apply this to everyday plans. You say, I will meet you for coffee at 3, fate permitting. This is not an excuse for flakiness. It is a mature recognition that a flat tire, a sudden illness, or a family emergency could intervene. It means you will do everything in your power to be there, while holding the plan lightly enough that if life intercedes, your peace is not shattered. You intended to go for a long walk this afternoon, fate permitting. The sky opens up into a downpour. The reserve clause held in your mind allows you to pivot without frustration. You did not fail. The conditions for that specific plan simply did not permit. You can now choose a different virtuous action, perhaps reading or a household task, with the same calm commitment. This practice systematically dismantles the entitlement that lurks inside so much of our planning, the unspoken belief that because we want something and work for it, the universe owes us the result. The reserve clause is a continual, gentle reminder that the universe operates on its own vast and complex logic. Our role is not to command that logic, but to navigate it with intention and adaptability, investing our energy wholly in the quality of our own strokes, while understanding we do not control the current of the river. The reserve clause teaches us to hold our plans lightly, but what about the heavy grip of our own anxious thoughts? There is another tool, one grounded in modern psychology, that acts like a mental lever to pry us out of repetitive worry. It is called cognitive distancing through third-person self-talk. When you are caught in a spiral of stress over something you cannot control, your mind operates from a place of intense, subjective immersion. You are inside the problem, and from that vantage point, every detail looms large and feels personal. The solution is not to argue with the thoughts, but to change your point of view entirely. Research suggests a remarkably simple shift. When you are wrestling with a difficult decision or a nagging fear, pause and ask yourself this question. What would I recommend to a friend, or better yet, to someone with my exact name in this situation? By momentarily stepping outside of yourself and addressing your own situation as a compassionate advisor, you create instant psychological distance. You are no longer the protagonist drowning in the story. You become the wise narrator observing the plot from a balcony seat. This distance is where Stoic clarity rushes in. Let us say your name is Alex, and you are agonizing over a critical piece of feedback at work. The immersive first-person loop sounds like, "I am terrible at this. They must think I am incompetent. My career is in jeopardy." The emotional charge is high, and the focus is on uncontrollable externals, other people's opinions, and future career outcomes. Now switch to the third person. Alex, what would you say to a friend who received this same feedback? The advice that emerges is almost always calmer, more practical, and squarely focused on the controllable. You might think, I would tell Alex that one piece of feedback is not a definition of their worth. I would suggest they look for the single actionable piece of advice in the critique and focus on that. I would remind them that their response and their effort to improve are what they actually own. The emotional fog lifts because you have bypassed the reactive ego. You are accessing a more rational, principled part of your mind, the part that naturally understands the dichotomy of control when it is applied to someone else's life. This exercise forces you to translate a messy, internal worry into clear, external counsel. The advice you generate for your third-person self is, by its nature, actionable and virtue-oriented. It points you toward your own agency. You are not advising your friend to control their boss's thoughts. You are advising them to control their preparation, their attitude, their next steps. Practice this with smaller daily stresses. You are running late and stuck in traffic. The first-person panic says, "This is a disaster. I am going to be in trouble. Everything is ruined." Shift the perspective. What would you tell Sam, who is stuck in the same traffic? You would likely say, "Sam, call ahead. Let them know you are delayed." Use the time to listen to something interesting. Getting upset will not make the cars move faster. The situation is the same, but your relationship to it has transformed from one of helpless frustration to one of managed response. This tool is particularly powerful for dismantling the illusion that your personal problems are uniquely insurmountable. We are often far wiser and more compassionate counselors to others than we are to ourselves. Third-person self-talk simply allows you to extend that same clear-eyed kindness to the person who needs it most, you. It is a direct bridge from being lost in the storm of what you cannot control to standing on the solid ground of what you can. The wisdom of third-person counsel points our energy in a clear direction, but how do we ensure that direction is truly worthwhile? Amid the endless demands of modern life, our sense of control is often hijacked by a simple mistake. We pour our finite energy into things that do not actually matter. A daily exercise, disarmingly simple in form, acts as a filter for this very problem. It asks one question of every planned action, every looming commitment, and even every circling worry. Is this necessary? This is not about minimalist living or doing less for its own sake. It is a strategic audit of your attention, designed to channel your power away from superfluous efforts to control irrelevant outcomes and toward the essential, virtuous actions that are genuinely within your sphere of influence. The question itself is a tool of liberation. You wake up and scan your mental to-do list, attend a long, recurring meeting that rarely produces decisions. Your automatic mind says, "I have to go, it is on the calendar," but you pause and apply the filter. Is my presence at this meeting necessary for me to fulfill my core duties or to act with integrity? If the honest answer is no, you have just identified a drain on your control. Your effort to be there, to appear engaged, to manage the perception of your commitment, is an attempt to control an outcome, your standing, that is ultimately not yours to command. The necessary action might be to respectfully delegate, to propose a more efficient format, or to use that time for a task that directly serves your purpose. The filter works just as powerfully on internal clutter. You find yourself rehearsing an argument from 3 days ago, crafting perfect rebuttals in your mind. Apply the filter. Is this repetitive mental rehearsal necessary? Does it serve my peace or my character? The answer is almost always a clear no. The event is past, the other person's opinion is outside your control. The necessary action is to release the mental loop and focus your energy on the present moment, where your virtue actually resides. This practice forces a constant alignment between your effort and your principles. You are invited to a social gathering out of obligation, not genuine connection. Is attending necessary for me to be a good friend or family member, or is it a performative attempt to control others' opinions of me? The filter clarifies the motive. Perhaps the necessary, virtuous action is to send a kind note and preserve your evening for rest, thereby honoring your own well-being, which you do control. Or it may reveal that showing up briefly to support a loved one is the right and necessary thing, shifting the action from a chore to a chosen expression of care. The beauty of this exercise is its immediacy. It can be used in the grocery aisle looking at an impulse buy. Is this necessary? It can be applied to an extra hour of late-night work on a project already sufficient. Is this necessary, or is it driven by a need to control perceptions of perfection? Each time you ask, you are conducting a small referendum on where your life force is going. You are voting either for the exhausting illusion of controlling everything around you, or for the serene power of focusing on what is truly yours, your necessary contributions, your essential peace. Over days and weeks, this filter does not just sort your schedule, it refines your character. You become a person who discerns the vital from the vain, who invests deeply where it counts, and who gracefully lets go of the countless minor battles you never needed to fight for a sense of command. Your energy, once scattered trying to manage the unmanageable, coalesces into a steady, purposeful force applied only to the ground you can actually stand upon. Necessity is a filter for action, but reality itself offers a deeper lesson in letting go. There is a practice that asks you to simply sit and observe the world's most honest teacher, change itself. This is the contemplation of impermanence, and it requires no philosophy books, only your eyes and a willingness to see. Find a quiet moment, perhaps by a window or on a park bench. Your task is not to think but to watch the clouds, see how a distinct shape, a ship or a mountain, softens at the edges, blurs, and becomes something entirely new within minutes. That solid form was an illusion of permanence. The truth was always flux. Watch the leaves on a tree, how they tremble in a breeze you cannot command, how one eventually detaches and spirals down on a path you could never predict. Watch the flow of a stream, how no single drop of water remains in the same place for even a second. Observe a crowd of people moving through a station, a river of individual stories and destinations, each person appearing and then vanishing from your view. The goal of this exercise is not to feel sadness at the passing of things. It is to internalize at a cellular level the fundamental nature of everything outside your skin. It is all in motion, it is all flowing, it is all, by its very definition, beyond your grasp, the solid ground of your plans, the fixed identity of a relationship, the permanent status of your possessions. These are stories your mind tells for comfort. Reality whispers a different truth through the drifting clouds. Everything external is a temporary configuration of matter and energy, on loan from a universe that never stops rearranging itself. When you deeply absorb this truth, a profound shift occurs. You stop trying to freeze the river. The frustration you feel when a plan changes, when a mood shifts, when a circumstance evolves, that frustration is a form of resistance to the basic law of the cosmos. You are arguing with physics itself. Peace is found not in winning that argument, but in putting down your weapons. It is found in aligning your expectations with the observable fact of flow. You prepare for the meeting, but you hold the agenda lightly, knowing conversations have their own current. You cherish the quiet evening, but you do not clutch it, understanding that quiet, like all things, is a passing weather pattern in your life. This contemplation turns acceptance from a moral idea into a simple acknowledgement of fact. You are not giving up control. You are realizing you never had it over these external, flowing things to begin with. The cloud does not need your permission to change. The leaf does not consult you before it falls, and in that realization is an immense relief. Your job was never to command the river. Your job is to learn how to swim, how to navigate the currents with grace, and how to appreciate the ever-changing view from within the stream. This practice ends not with a conclusion, but with a quiet sense of kinship. You are part of this flow, not its master. And in that belonging, the struggle for a control that was always an illusion finally, gently, comes to rest. That flow of impermanence clarifies where we stand, yet it leaves a practical question. Where do we actually place our feet? A powerful mental map, adapted through a Stoic lens, offers the answer. You visualize two concentric circles. The outer, vastly larger ring is your circle of concern. This contains everything that captures your worry or attention, from global events and the economy, to a neighbor's opinion, to the weather on your wedding day. It is immense, and it is filled with things you care about but cannot command. Inside it, drawn much smaller, is your circle of influence. This is the domain of your direct personal agency. Your own actions, your chosen attitudes, your next words, your immediate efforts. The critical insight is that most people exhaust themselves by focusing on the outer circle, pouring anxious energy into things they cannot change. This drains their power and actually causes their inner circle, their true sphere of influence, to shrink. The Stoic exercise is a deliberate energy transfer. You consciously withdraw your mental and emotional investment from the outer circle of concern, and you reinvest every ounce of that energy into purposeful action within your inner circle of influence. Start by literally drawing these circles on paper. In the outer ring, list the current sources of your anxiety: the political climate, a family member's health choices, the stock market, whether your friend returns your call. Acknowledge them, but see them for what they are: concerns, not responsibilities. Now look at the inner circle. What can you actually do? You cannot control the political climate, but you can control being informed and voting locally. You cannot control a family member's choices, but you can control offering support when asked and modeling healthy behavior yourself. You cannot control the market, but you can control your spending habits and your financial literacy. You cannot make your friend call, but you can control sending one kind, no-pressure message and then turning your attention fully to your own work. The exercise is in the daily redirection. When you catch yourself worrying about an outer circle item, you pause and ask, what is the very next action within my influence that aligns with my values regarding this? If the answer is nothing, you practice the mental discipline of releasing the worry, because it is a fire you cannot put out. If there is an action, you take it fully, and then release the outcome back to the outer circle. This practice creates a virtuous cycle. As you focus your energy on your circle of influence, it begins to expand. Your consistent, virtuous actions build trust, solve local problems, and improve your skills, which naturally increases the reach of what you can affect. Conversely, obsessing over your circle of concern only makes it feel larger and more menacing, paralyzing you into inaction. This map does not teach indifference to the wider world. It teaches strategic engagement. Your concern for the environment is noble. Wasting energy on despair about global trends, however, is an investment in the outer circle. Researching a local conservation group and volunteering one Saturday a month is an investment in your circle of influence. The first drains you. the second empowers you and creates tangible good. By continually auditing where your mental energy is going, you stop being a passive worrier about the world's weather and become an active gardener in your own plot. You tend to what you can actually touch, and in doing so, you cultivate a life of genuine impact and profound inner peace. The final exercise brings you directly into the most challenging arena for control, the heated argument. This practice is called the discipline of silence. Its purpose is not to concede or to lose, but to create a laboratory inside the conflict itself. In the middle of a charged discussion, when every instinct screams to defend, correct, or overpower, you make a conscious and radical choice. You stop speaking, you close your mouth, and you open your awareness. You become an observer of the storm rather than a participant trying to shout over the thunder. This silence is not passive. It is an intense, active practice of the dichotomy of control. In that quiet space you create, you can see the mechanics of the conflict with startling clarity. The other person's rising voice, their chosen words, their entrenched opinion, all of it flows past you like debris in a river. You cannot control any of it. Trying to do so only pulls you into the current. Your silence becomes the proof, a tangible demonstration that their speech is not your domain. Your domain is the quiet behind your own eyes, your breath, your decision not to fuel the fire. In this laboratory, you conduct a real-time experiment. What happens to your internal state when you stop trying to control the external dialogue? The initial heat of your own anger, which felt so justified, begins to cool. You notice it as a sensation, not a command. You see the other person's posture, their expressions, not as threats, but as data about their internal weather, which you did not cause and cannot change. This practice transforms the argument from a battle to be won into a training ground for your own sovereignty. You are not there to control the outcome. You are there to exercise control over the only thing you ever could, your participation. When you finally choose to speak again, if you do, it will be from a place of chosen principle, not reactive impulse. You might ask a question to understand rather than making a point to conquer. You might simply state your perspective calmly once, releasing any attachment to whether it is accepted. Or you might choose to let the silence stand, ending the engagement with your peace intact, having proven to yourself that your worth was never on the line in their approval. This is the ultimate social application of all that came before. In the furnace of disagreement, you practice letting the uncontrollable be exactly what it is, while you tend with fierce discipline to the quiet flame of your own reasoned choice. These 20 exercises are not a checklist to complete, but a regimen to return to, a mental gymnasium where you train for the life you are actually living. Their power lies not in a single moment of enlightenment, but in the quiet, daily repetitions that gradually rewire your deepest assumptions. Dismantling the illusion of control is not a project with a finish line. It is the lifelong practice of coming home again and again to the only ground that can ever truly support you, your own sovereign choice in the face of an uncontrollable world. This is the path to a profound tranquility that is not passive but fiercely alive, and to an effectiveness that flows from clarity, not from frantic effort. Your journey begins not with mastering all 20, but with choosing one. Pick a single exercise from this training ground, perhaps the Stoic Pause or the Evening Review, and commit to practicing it with gentle consistency for the next 7 days. Observe the subtle shifts in your daily weather. Notice where your energy flows when you stop fighting the current. This is how philosophy moves from an idea into your bones, transforming frustration into freedom, one conscious breath, one sorted thought at a time. For more guides to turning ancient wisdom into daily practice, consider joining this community by subscribing. Your next step, however, is beautifully simple. Close this video and begin your training.